Hi and welcome to today's live stream from Logosol. Today's live stream is going to be a Q&A. Ask us anything, or don't ask us
Anything.
anything. Anything about Logosol and our products. That would be great. No, today me and my colleagues here, Karin and Per, oh sorry, is going to answer all your questions during the live stream, and you can answer, you can ask any question you want regarding Logosol and our products. We have also prepared some questions by looking at the previous live streams and tried to put together a lot of frequently asked questions, and also questions that you have sent in to us before this live stream. If you want to know more about Logosol and our products, you can visit our homepage at logosol.com, where you can find information about all our products and prices and more technical information, and also pictures and videos of our products. And you can also choose to sign up for our newsletter. If you click the banner on top of the page, you can sign up and you will get the first newsletter. Will be including our own digital customer magazine, and then we will send you a message once a month with more information about products, campaigns, and inspirational content. So please ask your questions in the chat, and we will answer as many as possible. But I think we'll start with some questions right away. A quite common question we get is regarding our chain sawmills. What differences are there between the F2 and F2 Plus chain sawmill?
Yes, and the main differences between the F2 Plus and the F2 is that the log lifters on the F2 Plus is 600 millimeters long, and the F2 they're 500 millimeters long. Also on the F2 Plus you have a front beam that connects the log lifters together to kind of reinforce it sideways. If you're adjusting a heavy log lengthwise, it's a reinforcement for that, and it can take a heavier load on the F2 Plus because of this, and you can also remove the main guide rail and the struts in one section, so you split the long legs in half. Basically you just undo a few bolts and then you can lift the whole attachment off, and that's not possible on the F2, so I would say those are the main
Differences.
yeah.
And also, the design and the difference is actually to accommodate for, the F2 Plus have a max log diameter of 70 centimeters.
Yeah.
And it's based on that, we have it's also a different ratio on the log lifters.
Yeah.
On the F2 Plus. So you're actually stronger with the hand crank when you lift the log up, because it's designed for a heavier and bigger log. And the max diameter on the F2 is 50 centimeters.
Yeah.
So that's the recommended maximum log diameters that we recommend. Yeah, but that they are designed for, and that's why we've chosen to make them different depending on the use case. So that's the main differences, and it's basically what you want to mill. If you know that you're milling larger logs, mainly up to 70 centimeters in diameter, and you want a chainsaw mill that's portable, in a way that it's really easy to set it up again. I mean, then the F2 Plus is the clear choice, because as Pelle mentioned, when you lift the guide rail off, it's all set up. So it's really easy to move it to a new position and put the legs down and then the complete guide rail section up, and you're ready to start milling within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
As with the F2, which you can like take down in smaller parts, then it takes a bit longer to set it up when you come to a new place.
Yeah.
I don't know, 30, 40 minutes
Yeah.
to align the guide rails and everything. But still, if you only mill logs up to 50 centimeters, then the F2 is a very good choice. And on both the F2 and the F2 Plus, we have the same kind of guide rail.
Yeah.
So you can use same type of
Power heads.
yeah, power heads, exactly. For both mills, you can use the log molder on the F2 or F2 Plus. The guide rail is the same. And we can talk about power heads when we are talking about it. We often get the question about what kind of electricity you need when you want to purchase an electric chainsaw
Yeah.
from Logosol. All our electric chainsaws are 3-phase, 400 volt and 50 hertz, which means that it's built for Europe. And on the ES5, the electric chainsaw, we have a 16 amp intake, electrical intake, which means you have to have a 16 amp fuse. And on the ES8, which is an 8 kilowatt motor, you still have a 16 amp intake, and you need a 16 amp fuse. And if we're looking at the bandsaw mills, those are also 3-phase, 400 volt and 50 hertz. But they require, at least 2 of them require a bigger fuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have the B751 with the 4 kilowatt motor, and on that one you can run it with the 16 amp fuse. But the B751 with the 8 kilowatt motor, it's a 32 amp intake, and you need to have at least 20 amp fuse or breaker. And then we have the B1001, which has a 12 kilowatt motor with the 32 amp intake, and you need to have at least a 25 amp fuse for it to run without issues. So that's good to know, and it's also a question we get very often.
Mm.
And then another question we get is, we have both chainsaw mills and bandsaw mills, and when do I choose what?
Yeah. Yeah. And the big differences between the bandsaw mills and the chainsaw mill is mainly the curve, which also affects the cutting speed. So you'll have a faster cut with a bandsaw. You have half the curve, and that makes it more suitable if you're, for example, are cutting a lot of thinner dimensions or making a lot of cuts in every log, because you get twice the amount of waste with a chainsaw mill. So it has to do a lot with what kind of materials you produce and what kind of projects you have. If you're cutting out beams, for example, or construction timber, it makes less of a difference because you make few cuts on each log, or fewer cuts on each log, and then you have to take into account how much you're gonna use the mill as well. Those are the kind of the main things that I think you should look at depending on if you're going with a band sawmill or a chain sawmill.
And the chain sawmills are a bit more portable than the band sawmills, perhaps, if you like to move them into the forest or so.
Yeah.
Mm.
And obviously it reflects in the price as well. So the chain sawmills are lower priced compared to the band sawmills, and it has a little bit to do also with how much you can produce in terms of production speed.
Another question we get quite often is the length of the sawmill. On our web page we have, for example, the F2 and F2 pluses
Yeah.
are 4 meter, and on the band sawmills you can mill up to 4.8 meters. How do you go about if you want to mill longer than that?
Yeah, if you want to cut longer length on the chain sawmills, you can either get a 1 meter extension with a third log lifter, and then you'll get a 5 meter total length, and you'll cut about 4.7. If you extend it to a 6 meter version with a log lifter, you'll have 2 1 meter guide rails and a third log lifter, and it'll allow you to cut 5.7 meters. There's also available 2 half meter extensions if you just want to extend the guide rails. But it's usually a benefit if you want to cut longer materials that you add another log lifter, because you get more supports near the end of the material, so it doesn't hang down by its own weight.
But how long can you make the chainsaw mill?
Well, you can make it as long as it's built up in modules, so you can actually build it as long as you require it to be.
We have quite a few customers that's running mills that are 8 or up to 12 meters long.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible to extend it to make it really long, and for a reasonable investment. I don't know what sawmill you can get for that kind of money that can mill like 8, 10 or 12 meter logs. And the bandsaw mills.
Well, it's really the same there. If you have a stationary mill, you can pretty much extend it as long as you want, because every extension is 1.14 or 1.15 meters long. So you can really decide yourself how long you want it to be.
Good. Yeah, that's a quite common question we get when it comes to the length, and that's why we have the standard length in the web page.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to extend them, and it's 4 meters is quite. If you buy an F2 that can mill 4 meters, or not mill 4 meters, it is 4 meters. You can mill 3.7 meters, and that's basically enough for a lot of applications.
Absolutely.
In construction timber, for example. But cutting with the chainsaw mill, how much can you cut with the chain?
Well, you can't really give an exact number, because it depends on usually how much dirt or sand or other things that lies in the bark and dulls the chain. It's usually all the dirt in the bark that affects the chain the most, and sometimes, and obviously also what type of wood it is, but a lot of times you'll cut between 2 to 4 to 5 logs before you need to change the chain. But in some cases it might just take 1 log before you need to replace the chain. So it can actually can be quite a big difference depending what you're milling.
Yeah, but and the difference is compared to a bandsaw blade.
Yes, on the bandsaw blade it's usually running hours, and usually with the standard blades you run between 1 to 2 hours. With the HSS blades you run 3 to 4 hours, and with the carbide blades you can run usually several days, or we have some clients that's been running it even longer than that. So they differ quite a bit depending on the type of blade that you're using.
And another question we get quite often as well is how many times can you grind a chain or a bandsaw blade, for example?
Yeah. Well, we've done some tests on the chains, and basically theoretically if you just resharpen a chain all the time you'll get to more than 100 sharpenings, but maybe a lot of times you remove a little bit more material each sharpening, so you get less than that. But you can sharpen a chain a lot of times, and with the bandsaw blades it's technically about 10 times, but most of the time they end up around 5 times, because you usually tend to remove a little bit more material than necessary. So.
Mm.
But with the chains, it's important also that you don't run the chains for too long when they start to get dull, because then you have to sharpen more. You have to take off more material if the edge gets very dull. So that's usually when you feel that you get a higher resistance when you're on the feed rate, then it's better to change the chains more often than.
And what's the golden rule when using a chain sawmill or a bandsaw mill?
Well, it's to use always use sharp cutting equipment, because it also reduces wear on other parts on the machines. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more fun to use it when you
And the result.
and the
Exactly.
result
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
better. Mm.
Especially, you want to make sure you get a good result when you put time into it.
Mm. We have our first question in the chat. Is Logosol considering production of a bandsaw mill with a log diameter of 500 to 600 millimeters?
That's actually that already fits in the bandsaw in the B751 bandsaw
Yeah,
mill.
absolutely.
The B751 bandsaw mill can cut logs up to 751 millimeters in diameter. So I would say 500 to 600 millimeters is actually perfect for that bandsaw mill. So either the B751 or the B751 Pro. And the B1001 can mill logs up to 1001 millimeters. So that's a bit bigger, or for larger logs. But basically that the B751 fits perfectly with that requirement.
So thank you for the question. Please send in questions in the chat if you have any.
When we're talking about chainsaw mills and the cutting equipment, is there something special with the ripping chains that we use in our sawmills?
Yes, compared to a normal crosscut chain, the tooth angle is 10 degrees instead of 30-35 degrees. So that's the main difference, really. And then we use mainly a low profile chain, with a 3/8 pitch and a 1.3 millimeter for 1.3 millimeter track.
Mm. And it's a chain that's actually a standard chain made by steel.
Yes.
Can you use Husqvarna chainsaw on our sawmills?
Yes, we have quite a lot of customers using the Huskies on our chainsaw mills or timber jigs. The main things that decides if the chainsaw works or not is that the chainsaw have 2 guide bar bolts. Chainsaws with a single guide bar bolt doesn't work together with the jig or the saw carriage on the F2, F2 Plus or previous models. And the saw also has to have a sprocket cover where you can remove the guide bar bolts. On quite a lot of the new chainsaws you have the guide bar nuts captive in the cover, so you can loosen them, but they're captive inside the sprocket cover. And all the chainsaws that we supply from steel, like the 391 and the 661 that we mainly sell for the chainsaw mills, we get them and we deliver them with a suitable sprocket cover. So that's quite good to know as well. And then we have, if you have a different model, you can we have extension nut that fits M8 or M10 guide bar bolts, which the M8 is probably the most common on most chainsaws with 2 guide bar bolts.
Yeah, I mean both steel and Huskies, a lot of them it's got an M8 guide bar bolt.
Yeah.
On the larger ones you have the M10.
M10 exactly. Yeah.
And then we often get questions about Logosol and wonder where we're based.
In Härnösand, middle of Sweden, about 4 hours drive from Stockholm.
And what do we do?
We produce and sell the portable equipment for portable sawmilling, small scale sawmills. So we have both chain sawmills, band sawmills, and equipment for them.
But do Logosol only ship to Swedish customers?
No. We sell to about 60 to 65 different countries every year. So we ship from Härnösand and we sell directly to many countries. And we also have dealers on some markets, on many markets.
Many markets.
So we have some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
So do you have saw blades below 36 inch? If so, how much?
Saw blades below 36 inch.
I'm not sure about that question.
Could it be a guide bar? Like a saw blade? We have questions about 2 feet long. Where do you have chain for it? If you're interested in different lengths of guide bars, I think it's better if you contact us via phone or email. So send your question into info@logosol.com and we'll help you out that way. We have a lot of different length guide bars. So just send us the question or give us a call. You can find our contact details if you go to logosol.com and we'll take it from there. And also, let's see. We get a few questions, but mainly it's actually most common that we get this question from Swedish customers, and that is why we are milling in inches.
Oh yes.
And I mean, in Sweden nowadays, inches, or should we say imperial measurements, aren't very common. We use millimeters more.
At least in Europe. And
At least in Europe
Yeah.
and in Sweden mainly. I mean,
yeah.
we have a history of using inches, but we still use inches on our both our chain sawmills and band sawmills. And a lot of Swedish customers I know often ask, why is that?
Yeah, and it's mainly because when you're milling rough boards or planks, if you cut them in inches, when they're finished, when they're put through secondary processing and been planed, we have the finished measurements with millimeters, but it's very suitable to cut them in 1 inch, for example, or 2 inch, and then finish when they've been seasoned and put through a secondary processing. They'll end up at 22 millimeters or 45 millimeters on a 2 inch. So that's the main, and it also has to do with the curve. When you use the chain sawmills, every step is a 1/4 inch, and that's the same as the curve with the chain. And when you use a band saw, every step is 1/8 of an inch, and that's the same. 1/8 of an inch is the same as the curve on the saw blade. So it makes it very easy to set up the height or the thickness.
And also, it's very easy to get an exact dimension
Yes.
over and over and over again. I mean, both on the chain sawmills, fixed steps gives you the exact same thickness on every board.
Yeah.
And on the band sawmill as well, instead of having a stepless adjustment of the saw blade, we have these 1/8 of an inch step, which means that every time you move the saw head, you move it in exact positions. So
Yes.
if you want 1 inch boards, you will get 1 inch boards repeatedly over and over again, because it's fixed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you have it more stepless or not fixed, it's easy to look at the scale at a different angle, and it can differ a couple of millimeters each time. But with this system, you get the exact same thickness all the time. I see that we got a question here as well.
Very good.
Yeah, very good
Yeah.
question. Yes, this summer we experienced vibration in the chainsaw blade, resulting in a ribbed surface. Is that a sign the chain needs sharpening, replacing, or could this have other causes too?
Well, it could be a few different reasons if you get a lot of vibrations. It could be, for example, that the track in which the chain moves in the guide bar has gotten worn, so it's wider than on a new bar. Could also be that when you've sharpened the chain, if you especially use a round file, and the chain gets too aggressive, so the teeth gets a very large hook angle here, that can also cause by ripples when you're milling, and you can also actually encounter it sometimes when you cut frozen timber as well. But I would say probably those are the main things.
I hope it wasn't frozen this summer.
No, of course. No, this sound, no.
No, but still, a very
Yeah.
aggressive chain will act that way, and if it is frozen, it's always you can actually. It could be a benefit to sharpen it in the machine and use an angle of
Exactly. Yeah.
closer to 60 degrees instead of closer to 45 degrees.
Yeah.
We normally recommend 55 to 60 degrees side plate angle. And that's very hard with the round file, because with the round file you're fixed with the shape of the round file and the diameter of the round file. So if you normally use a 4.8 millimeter file, you can try and go up to a 5.5 millimeter file to get a more blunt,
A straighter teeth.
tooth. Yeah.
Tooth, yeah.
And even a brand new chain sometimes need to be sharpened because they are too aggressive.
Yeah, a brand, or hopefully not. But a brand new chain, you can get this kind of phenomenon where you get like a washboard surface or a ribbed surface, because the new chain is actually very, very aggressive. And if you have a worn out guide bar, or a guide bar that's where the tolerances in the groove aren't that good, so you have a wider track than what's required, then it can start moving up and down in the cut and creating these ripples or ribs in the cut. So, but if you experience it, you can sometimes get away with grinding it so that you will get a less aggressive tooth. But the best is to actually use a solid guide bar, because we know that the solid guide bars, especially the ones from Canon Bar, are very they're very hard, durable, and the tolerances in the groove are very good. So with that combination, with a very good guide bar, and even though you have a very aggressive new chain, you won't get this effect. So it all comes down to the cutting equipment. And here we have an idea for the next Chain Sawmill demo. I'd like to see some irregular shaped wood being cut. I want to see how the jig can handle hard to grip pieces. Yeah, that's
A
a
good idea.
Yeah.
really good suggestion. I think we can
We have to search for that kind of
wood. Yeah,
wood.
we have like straight.
Yeah, we don't
pine-
have that
pine
much.
trees. No irregular woods, but I think we can
We can sort something out.
sort something out.
Also, I want to know, do you have soundproof chain sawmill?
Soundproof.
Perhaps if we have tested or something.
I mean, all our chainsaw mills, electric chainsaws, for example, have a CE document with the measurements you make, and you have to write down what kind of decibels it's giving off. But soundproof.
No,
And also the steel chainsaws are of
Yeah,
course
they are
proved from steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever you produce a machine and it has to apply to the machine directive, you need to measure the sound when it's running and when you're running it and milling, and you have to certify that.
but you always want to use
Air protection.
yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
you
of
have to
course.
do that. Yeah.
Air protection and safety goggles.
Yeah.
Do we another normal question that we get is, can the sawmill stand outside all the time?
Yes, and the answer to that is yes. Both the band sawmills and the chain sawmills, they can be outside. The main thing is that you ideally, if you take in the electrical parts or cover them at least when you're not using them. For example, on the chain sawmill, you can easily slide off if you have an electric saw, for example, or if you have a electric feeding system for the electric saw, you can slide that off, take it inside, and with the band sawmills, you can put we have a cover available for them that you can put over the sawmill when you're not using it, and obviously that lessen the wear on the machines, so it prolongs the life and reduce the risk of getting any water into electric box or whatever it is.
And the chain sawmills are made of aluminum,
Yes.
so they are.
They are not sensitive
No.
to the outside.
No, I mean the anodized aluminum is a very both wear resistant and a surface that lasts very long
Yeah,
and can withstand being outdoors all the time. The only thing you have to think about is all these small, the moving parts, for example, that you can spray them with a little bit of oil now and then just to keep them protected,
yeah.
to give it a longer life.
And a lot of clients, they make their own sheds over the sawmills just because it's nicer to work when the weather is not great, and you can have a lot of tooling in there, and you know it makes it easier.
I would say it's the most common first project.
Yes, that's true.
Don't you agree?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's true.
I think so too.
You're buying the sawmill first, and the first project is building your own saw shed or like a roof over the sawmill so you can stand outside and mill. I mean, no matter if it's raining or snowing or
Yeah, exactly.
And another question is regarding the bandsaw mills. What do you put in the tank? We have a water tank on the, and water tank says it all, right?
Yes.
Or what do you put-
Water, I suggest water.
Yeah. Yeah, you put water in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also some, how do you say, freezing protection, if it's cold outside.
Yeah, like windshield washer fluid.
Yeah.
T-rod. I don't think that's applicable
No.
in English.
No.
But just to protect it from freezing. But water works just fine for most cases, and just to give it a bit of cooling and a bit of like lubrication,
Yeah.
and keeps resin and to stick on the saw blade. But we have customers that add a bit of soap as well. Just if you have wood that's got a lot of resin in it, and you have problems with the resin and sawdust sticking on the blade.
Yeah.
So water works just fine.
Yeah.
So that's what we recommend actually. Yes.
We have a question here if somebody likes to come and visit us, our factory. How can they contact us so we can arrange with that? So we could repeat the contact details.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you go to logosol.com, you will find our address and our contact details here to the headquarters in Härnösand in Sweden. give us a call, send us an email, and we can take it from there. You are most welcome to come and visit.
Yeah, and hopefully we will have a better situation with the pandemic soon.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that will be possible. Okay, one more.
Yeah, you read it.
My F2 Plus with steel 661 and accessories has arrived, and I'm very impressed with the quality. Thank you. I do have a question. Is it possible to get the manual for the steel in English?
Congrats, Lloyd.
Yes.
You got your sawmill.
Yeah.
It's great to hear. I believe the manual for the steel in English is available to get electronically,
Yeah.
not as a printed manual.
But you can go into Steel on Steel's website. You'll be able to download the manual for the 661.
In English.
Yeah.
And good luck with the equipment.
Yeah.
Have a lot of fun with it.
A lot of fun to look forward to.
Yeah.
And then some grown-ups mechano as well first.
Yeah.
So what else? This is also a question we get quite often. If I already have a chainsaw, can I use it, or do I have to buy another one or a new one?
Yeah, that's kind of going back just to, you have to make sure if you already have a chainsaw that the chainsaw has 2 guide bar bolts, that you can remove the 2 guide bar nuts in the sprocket cover and replace them with 2 extension nuts. And as long as the cover isn't too bulky, which it isn't on most models of the Steel and Husky, it will work just fine if you have an existing.
And it has to be strong enough.
Exactly, yeah. So we recommend that it's least over 50 cc, but it's only good if it's 60 or 70, or the bigger the better.
The bigger the better.
Yeah.
It's more fun to mill
Yeah.
with the powerful chainsaw.
And most of the time it doesn't matter what kind of chainsaw, even if you have a quite small chainsaw with 2 guide bar bolts and you can use it. It's fun for the first couple of logs, but then if you have a big stack that you need to mill, then it's kind of nice to have a little bit bigger saw so you get a higher cutting speed.
Yeah, and I mean a big chainsaw, that's more impressive than a small one, right?
Yeah.
Of course, but if you already have one, you can try first. Try
Exactly.
it out, and you can upgrade
Yeah.
later on.
And we have a lot of customers that we recommend to try it first, see how well it works, and I mean they try it for a while, it works okay, and they keep using that if they don't have that many logs to mill, or if they feel that okay, I've tried, it wasn't powerful enough, you can always purchase a more
A bigger one.
More powerful, yeah.
yeah.
Or an electric saw. That's also very common, that you upgrade from petrol one to electric.
Mr. Sambu, the size matters, you mean? Yeah, in terms of chainsaws, I think the size matters for using it on the chainsaw mills. And then Lloyd, I saw the manual online, so normally okay, but your agent in Wales is excellent, Davis Implement, thanks. Thanks, Lloyd.
Yeah, thank you.
let's see what's. Yeah, this is quite a normal question. Not normal, but quite common. How much can you mill on top of the saw blade, or between the saw head and the saw blade on the bandsaw mills?
Okay, yeah, you have, you can cut a 8-inch thick beam pretty much out of, you have room for 8-inch, and then it's a little bit more taken into account as well. So you have a few more centimeters, but it's made kind of for an 8-inch as maximum.
Yeah, and that's the same for
all three models.
For all three models.
Yeah.
Exactly. Why is the chain sawmill built from aluminum?
Well, it's very light, and it's very strong, and it's very durable as well. So it's a very good material to use, actually.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, it's a strong material.
Yeah.
Even though it's lightweight.
Yeah.
But we see it as an advantage of it being lightweight, since the sawmill and F2 is like 50 kilos.
Yeah.
And the F2 Plus is 60, 65.
Something.
So it's not that hard if you want to move it to another spot, if you keep it assembled. We talked about earlier that you can disassemble it to put it in smaller pieces, but even assembled, you can put it on a trailer easy.
Yeah.
With one or two people lifting it up and just transporting it to another site.
It's a fantastic invention. We have produced it for 31 years now, and sold over 30,000 chain sawmills. So it's a great product, and we quite often talk to old customers that has the same sawmill as from the beginning.
Yeah, that they had for 20, 25 or 30 years.
It's fantastic.
And they are still using it.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to hear those stories when they tell us about what and how much they have built. Built houses and garages.
Yeah.
Saunas.
I remember spoken to several customers that's, they've been using it a long time, and they've cut maybe over 1,000 logs, that's a lot of material.
That's amazing.
We're leaving that subject and going over to chains again.
Yes.
On our big mill wide slabber, we have a chain that looks a bit strange.
Yes, it's called a skip chain, and a hyper skip chain. So it has a left and a right tooth, and then a long distance, and then a left and a right. I think it's almost 8 inches between each pair, which is very suitable when you're doing the wide cuts, because it clears the sawdust very well. And it also, because of that part, it cuts a lot faster than if you would have a normal ripping chain. So it's actually very useful for the wide slabbing.
And it's 0.404 pitch as well. So it's an impressive chain.
Yeah.
And when you see it the first time, it's really like you don't understand how this is going to cut. But it works really, really well. And on those bigger slabs.
Yeah, it's a big difference. And it's also quite easy to sharpen those chains as well, because I think you have about the same amount of teeth as you have for a normal chain on a like 16-inch bar or something like that.
Yeah, it's really few teeth.
So it's quite nice. Yeah.
Quick to sharpen. Yes. That was the questions we've picked up from before.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions in
No,
the chat?
we haven't.
Well,
But
maybe one question that comes to mind is when you're starting, and it's on both the chain sawmills and the band sawmills, is if you're milling and you start and you start to lose the precision in the cut, and either it's going downwards or you get waves, or what things are good to have a look at to try and resolve the issue with the precision.
I would say try to sharpen the chain and blade.
Yes, that's always the kind of the starting point.
Number one,
One.
check to see that you have a sharp chain or a sharp bandsaw blade.
Yeah,
I mean, often it's due to that you've been running too long and you actually forgot to check.
yeah.
And that's probably the easiest and most common mistake that you do. You mill too long
Yeah,
and you get a bad result due to it. But it's easy to remedy.
and kind of one good advice when you're doing chainsaw milling is if you have a new bar and a new chain, the easiest way is to put the old chain that you were using on the new bar, or use an old bar with a new chain. That way you can kind of it's quite easy to find out what's causing, because most of the time it's either the bar or the chain.
It's good when you are troubleshooting, only change one thing at a time.
Yeah,
So that you find out if it's the bar or the chain.
yeah,
Instead of switching out both, you won't know if it was the chain or the bar.
no,
So that's quite common for like troubleshooting advice.
yeah,
Switch one thing only and test.
yeah.
Did this change anything? And then you do the other thing. And then, so it's easy to get into what's exactly the problem is.
Yeah. And it's and with the band sawmills, if you change the blade and it's still deviating, it's always good to have a look at the blade guide rollers and make sure that they're parallel to the rail, so the blade is positioned at the same direction as the rail, and that you have adjusted the blade guide rollers so that the flange on the back side of the roller isn't too close, for example, to the blade. And you have those kind of instructions in the manual as well, but that can also cause deviations in the cut, and it can also be, if you're cutting wood with a lot of resin, you can get a resin buildup on the teeth of the blade, so it's good to have a look at that as well. So there are a few things you can have a look at quite easily if you notice any loss in precision.
Yeah. Very good.
Super. Thanks for a lot of good questions.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoyed it, and that you found it interesting, and yeah.
If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to contact Logosol.
Give us a call, send us an email, contact us on social media. So it's time for coffee.
Yes, please.
Take care.
Yeah.
Take care.